Can you tell? Yeah, because that's the original.
Yeah, so that's just the spotting, isn't it? You've got a posh colour, right?
I know. But you don't put any money on the price of the house, does it?
Doesn't mind either.
I can have it on display. Do you know what? The problem is I might have to have a word with all you lot next spring. What I do, I'll bag everything up that I've got in the bedroom so it looks tidy. I reckon I need 2 garages. Plus me own. This is a geezer's place. And somebody does all
It's a double barrel question. So in fact,
that's why we want it.
there's a double barrel question there, so there is no answer to question 1.
It's just my eldest girl that lives there. She can't see.
Strongly
Up to 3 weeks old. In the washing machine and tumble dryer and my towels keep soft.
It's not a black and white question, so
Everything's
they can
folded
interpret
there.
it however they want.
Put on and my work shirt on the bed.
Yes, that's right.
Now, if there was, see, if I paid somebody to come in and take me 3 months to do the ironing. But I could scoop it all up and just put it all up in and have somebody keep moving it around while the person's walking around. Oh look, what's that over there?
Well, good evening everyone. Thank you for coming here to Cascade this evening. Lower Thames Crossing Association hosting this meeting for you. We're not Highways England. We didn't bring this road to you. We're here trying to help you respond and fight and get the best possible mitigation we can for what Highways England have brought to us. Up here with me this evening talking to you we've got Robin Ball, Chair of the Lower Thames Crossing Association. And we've got Bob Lane, spokesperson for Lower Thames Crossing Association. And I've invited Robin to chair this meeting for us this evening. There will be a chance at the end to go through any questions you might have, and we'll do our best to help answer those for you. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. If anybody has any issues with any photos or video of themselves being taken this evening, please come and let us know afterwards, and we'll make sure that those are edited out for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Can you all hear me at the back? Okay, I thought I'd just say a few words about the Lower Thames Crossing and the recent history. As some of you might not be aware of who we are. Thanks, Bob. So, just to be clear on who the LTCA are, it's a charitable organisation established to benefit the communities impacted by the proposed Lower Thames Crossing. We've got 3 main objectives: to oppose the proposals to the detriment and environment of communities of North Kent, to promote solutions which maximise relief from traffic congestion and pollution, and to promote measures to mitigate the adverse impacts of the final crossing option. We've set up the LTCA to coordinate the activities of various parties representing areas such as Chalk, Riverview Park, Shorn, Higham and Cobham, and to get a common message across the Highways England and the government about local views. One final point on that, it's important to mention, we do completely oppose the crossing proposals. We don't believe it's the right solution, but Highways England will of course push ahead with their plans anyway, so we must fight to get as good an outcome as we possibly can. As many of you will know, the history of the government's plans for another crossing of the Thames east of Dartford date back to 2009 and earlier. The LTCA only formed in early 2016, however, when news broke of the upcoming consultation in that spring. I personally heard a rumour about the new route from family in Chalk over Christmas, that 2015 Christmas. I was surprised that I hadn't heard anything about it on social media. As I'm sure you know, there's lots of Facebook groups talking about local issues. So my reaction was to set up a new group on Facebook called the Third Thames Crossing Kent's Views, and membership of that group grew really, really quickly. And before I knew it, I had Councillor Brian Sweetland on the phone encouraging me to take matters further and reinvigorate the earlier campaigns from the 2013 consultation. Those campaigns were led at the time by A Bridge Too Far. That campaign organisation I wasn't even aware of in 2016, so that was news to me. Credit goes to A Bridge Too Far and its founders set that up back in 2013. Much of their efforts then contributed to what the LTCA went on to try to achieve. So, over the period from 2016 to today, as you can see there on the slides, that's a little potted history of the various events, various meetings, mostly held in the Rose and Crown at Shoreham. And this slide here puts our events as a campaign group in context with Highways England's timeline, which can be found in their consultation documents. Forgive me, my notes are a little bit repetitive here, so I'm just reading them to skip over the bits that I've already covered. Yeah, so just to reiterate, the aim is to get a common message across to Highways England and the government, and that message being no to option C. The founding members of the LTCA included Adam Holloway MP, Brian Sweetland, the late John Cubitt, who was the leader of Grafton Council at the time, Labour leader John Burden, as well as representatives from all the local parishes and action groups who had campaigned prior to the LTC being set up. And by coincidence, the inaugural meeting of the LTCA, or of the action group, it hadn't even been named at that point, took place on the very day the consultation, news of the consultation broke. We were meeting in Gravesend Civic Centre. So I think that's almost it for me, except to say that we're now in the middle of the formal consultation, being run by Highways England up to the 20th of December. And we're required to they're required to undertake that consultation as part of the development consent order process, because this is being handled as a nationally significant infrastructure project. So that's a big planning process that they've got to go through. So it's really important that we respond to this consultation. It's all part of the planning process for them to get their proposals delivered. Okay, I'll hand over to Aaron. He's going to take you through some details of the crossing. Thank you. Excuse me, just a moment.
Right, what I'm going to do is take you through some graphics to show you and help describe the impact as I see it to Riverview residents in this area and the immediate vicinity. Hopefully some of you recognise this. So here we've got the A2. As the proposals suggest, the M2 would be extended up through the middle here. It's the middle section of this road. The A2 effectively is on the outside as an outer road with what we think is concrete barriers in between. Strood over this way, Sean up here, Cobham over here. As current proposals are put forward, everyone from east of Gravesend, assuming they don't go down towards the A227, everyone from east of Gravesend would be having to come through all the convoluted roundabouts and joining the traffic off of this T-junction here over near Shoreham. So this is the junction where the LTC joins, the Lower Thames Crossing joins. This area here you'll see is roughly speaking where the current service station is at Cobham. Coming off of the M2 here, this is where you would come off of the M2 to get to East Gravesend. Coming off from the A2 would be back roughly where the current exit is from the A2, where you would come to Halfpence Lane. Coming off from the Lower Thames Crossing itself, you'd have all the traffic coming this way and joining at the very same roundabout as all of the traffic coming from Medway direction, London bound. And you've got all this traffic while it's going this way is also going to be meeting and navigating the roundabouts with the traffic trying to go that way. What this shows us here is force cutting, and that is that Highways England intend to build up embankment around the road. And what you'll see here, of course, this here is the topography. So the road comes down and the whole junction naturally sits in a divot, if you like, it's all lower ground here. And just to take a bit further along, so this is East Gravesend, Nell's Calf, roughly here, Valley Drive. If you're coming from East Gravesend, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, another roundabout here, and the T-junction. There's about 6 or 7 roundabouts, and then the T-junction to navigate, to be able to head on the A2. And that's like a tube map, if you will. This shows you, so as we were saying, coming from East Gravesend, Valley Drive, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 roundabouts, and then joining Brewers Road here. With all the traffic from Shoreham, Cobham, fighting you to go the other way, around the roundabouts. If you want to get to the Wainscott bypass, the actual exit from the A2, well, it's not an exit from the A2, you're still on the A2, but effectively you come off of the main carriageway, which becomes the M2, and it actually comes off roughly where the LTC junction is here, to be able to take the Wainscott bypass. What we will do is all the slides that we're sharing this evening, we'll make them available to you online as well. If you can see this is the junction, the Lower Thames Crossing, facing the other way. So the river is over that way. The link road's coming down. Fong Lane is running here. So it gives you a sense. Over here, Astra Drive. The top end of Fong Lane. All of that traffic coming from East Gravesend, wanting to come off, in theory, might decide to come down Fong Lane, the country road here.
Good luck.
So this isn't a single road. If you look at that, this is a whole network of roads, all merging together, right where our estate is here. This is the corner of Riverview Park, right here. And the distance from the closest house to the road is approximately 50 metres. And it's not a single road, it's a whole network, all merging right here. The levels, the road level and the current ground level, or the proposed ground level, it's roughly 11 metres from the ground level to where the road will be at this point. And it gradually, as you can see here, has to sweep downwards towards the tunnel. What this one shows you is same area again. The green dots here, environmental mitigation, but what they're proposing is to put a woodland here. So all of where they were knocking down some of Clay Lane Woods, and where you saw the A2 and the M2 as a combined road split by a concrete wall. In between those at the moment, if you think when you're going eastbound or westbound, London or coastbound, in between the roads you've got all the trees and all the wildlife. That will all disappear. So part of their thinking is all of this here will replace it. Which, if we can get them to do that, that's not a bad idea.
You're joking.
In addition here, the purple dots, that represents environmental mitigation, which at the moment, it's anyone's guess what they intend to do there, but it would be nice if, again, we could perhaps get them to extend the woodland, the planting of trees around here. What they did say, we had a meeting with Highways England just last week, and they did say from the moment they are able to get onto the land and start construction, so from 2021 in theory, they will start planting trees then. It gives them the chance to mature by the time the road is ready. What we see here, they're going to have to divert the utilities. So we've got gas pipes and we've got the electric pylons are going to have to be diverted, and they're brought closer to our estate. The distance here again is not much further than around about 50 metres to the nearest house. Public rights of way, they're proposing to put a footbridge here, which is probably roughly level with the bottom end of where Cascades is. And where they've had to cut public rights of way, they've had to divert them because they're protected by law. And just to complete the picture, right there we have chalk. The tunnel portals are just south of the A226 Gravesend Road. And when I've looked at the drawings, I think we were talking about it roughly 20 metres from ground level to where the road level is at this point. I'm not sure on that yet. We'll try and answer that again for us, maybe. Coming back up just to show you the land use again. So this here was Clay Lane Ancient Woodland, which they're cutting through to be able to get the junctions in. When they had the proposals in 2016, this was a much tighter junction. So all of the land use they had here, it wasn't like this. It was a much tighter junction. But the problem at the time, they said, was that they couldn't get the 70 mile per hour in having a tight junction. So that's why it's blown up to this mess now that you see. So that just showed you the more complete picture for our side of the river. Of course, what you can't see here is the impact that you would have on the A227 going past Mepham, because the traffic's got to get here somehow. You've got the A2 where it comes from the M25, which at the moment is a single file roundabout to get from the M25 to the A2, supposing they want to use this as their network resilience, they call it. Of course, you've got Cuxton Road as well, single file most of the way, or Bluebell Hill. One of the things they are proposing to do is to make Fong Lane a green bridge, where it goes under Fong Lane, right next to Review Park, a green bridge. That's what I think of when I think of a green bridge. Perhaps you think of something like this. Well, their proposals, more of a hedge with a road with a hedge alongside. So our thinking is perhaps we might like to ask them to make that a bit wider. And if you live a bit further away, so you're not right near the pylons, you're not right near the roads, you're up here somewhere, it's no problem. That's the noise impact across our estate, and they've only measured up to 600 metres from the road. And what that means is the red is greater than 1 decibel. It could be 1.5 decibels. It could be 20 decibels. It's over 1 decibel. And that's more of the complete route for you. Here we have, this was the artist's drawing showing the proposed woodland. Bob Lane will take you through in a moment his thoughts on the consultation. I think this will be in there perhaps. If you think it's a great idea to put a woodland there, tell them. And I'd like to pass you to Bob Lane now, take you through the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not quite as slick as these guys, especially when I haven't got any little doobery. Thank you. Okay, so there we go. That's a close-up picture of the junction. It does look wonderful. There's some deer that live in here and some sheep that graze around there, but they don't show on the picture. What I'm going to do is give you a guide to completing the questionnaire, but please, these are purely to help you make sense of the questionnaire. I'm going to try and explain what each question refers to, and to highlight some of the aspects that you might want to think about when you're answering the questions. Let me emphasise that this is not an organised campaign response. This guide does not provide any responses or answers. That's got to be down to you. You can support or you can oppose the Lower Thames crossing. It's your decision. Or you can comment on parts of it. This guide that I'm going to go through doesn't cover all of the questions, and it really only refers to issues on this side of the river. You don't have to answer all the questions. If you've got something you want to say, then by all means say it. But if you've got nothing to say, say nothing. That would be my view. But if there is anything about this proposal that you want to see changed, you want to challenge, you want to see improved, this is your chance to tell them. Don't waste it. The one thing you mustn't do is ignore it, because we're going to get this crossing. Whichever way you look at it, it's coming. So, I'm going to try and take this in the way that it is presented to us. And I've already done that bit, so I'm not going to do it again. The first question that they ask you, this is on the need for the Lower Thames crossing, and they spend a lot of detail telling you all about the case that Highways England have made to locate the Lower Thames crossing east of Gravesend. And the question is whether you agree with their case and that it is needed and that it needs to be here. The stated case for the crossing is to boost the economy, to ease congestion at Dartford, to provide quicker journeys, to support local growth, and to create a better future. Although who that better future for, I'm not quite sure. Now, lots of people might agree that something needs to be done. We know that the Dartford crossing is not fit for purpose. It's subject to repeated frequent incidents and delays and disruption. So you might agree that a new crossing is needed, but you might agree that you need a new crossing but you don't want it here. But just make no mistake, they're not asking you whether you agree that there's a case for a new crossing somewhere on the river. They're asking you if you agree with their case to put the Lower Thames crossing east of Gravesend. So when you start thinking about that question, I'm just trying to think of some things that you might want to ask yourself. And one of the things you might ask yourself, do you think we would need another crossing if they sorted out the problems at Dartford? Is locating the Lower Thames crossing east of Gravesend, is that the best solution to relieve traffic and congestion congestion at Dartford and the M25. Would a new lower Thames crossing just generate additional traffic and create more problems? All the sort of questions you need to think about. Do you want to promote growth and development in your local area? Is it acceptable for Highways England to seek to reduce the noise and pollution at Dartford by spreading it to other people down here? Would it be better to make more use of rail or shipping instead of building a new rail crossing? There's just lots of things to think about. I can't tell you what to say. I'm just saying these are the things you might want to think about. And the first question, 1A, is do you agree or disagree that the lower Thames crossing is needed? And by that they mean needed here. So, once you've answered that question, they're going to give you a box. And that box is so that you can tell them the reasons why you've given the answer that you gave. And of course, you might just simply agree that, yes, we need a new lower Thames crossing and we need it here. But that's fine, you can agree that. You might agree that we need a new lower Thames crossing, but you don't want it here. Just bear in mind, if you agree, they will present that as the majority of respondents agreed with that case for the lower Thames crossing east of Gravesend. So if you don't think it should be east of Gravesend, you should disagree and then go on to state your reasons. You'll have more opportunity to comment on the location in question 2. Others might just disagree that there's a crossing needed at all. Or you might decide that you don't know, or you're undecided. It's up to you. You can do what you like, but please, it's your decision, but give your reasons. So the next question is, do you support or oppose the location of the preferred route for the lower Thames crossing? What they're talking about now is the whole of the route from the M25 in Junction 20, north of Junction 29, all the way down to the M2 in Kent. So the question is, do you agree with that whole route? Do you think that option C, east of Gravesend, was the right decision? Some of you might remember that in the last consultation we were only ever offered a choice of routes east of Gravesend. The majority of people still rejected their preferred routes. We expected to see Dartford, but it wasn't there. Many people thought option A14 might have been worth it. That's a tunnel linking the M25 south of Junction 2 through to the M25 north of Junction 30. But they dismissed that. So the question is, do you support their selection of the route east of Gravesend? If you do, tick the box. If you don't, then tick the box to disagree. They then give you another box, and this is for you to tell them why. They ask, do you support or oppose the changes they have made to the route since the preferred route was announced in 2017? Well, to be honest, most of the changes have been north of the river. It's much longer over there. South of the river, the overall changes have been mainly to extend the tunnel, excuse me, to widen the A2M2 to 12 lanes, and a third version of the A2 junction. These details are in question 3. Even if you don't agree with the location of the tunnel or the crossing, you might support some of the changes that they've made over the last year, or you may not. Use the consultation to comment on the changes they've made and to request further changes or improvements that you would like to see. Question 2C, I want to know, give you a box, want to know why you gave the answers that you gave. If you don't agree with how they arrived at their decision to put the crossing east of Gravesend, then tell them. If you think it's in the wrong place, tell them. If you still think that Dartford or option A14 is best, then tell them. But don't forget, if there are changes that you want to see to this crossing, please tell them. And for those of you who are completely happy with the route east of Gravesend and the changes they've made, by all means, tell them. That was the whole route. Now they're going to break it into sections, and they start with the section south of the river. And they have made some changes. They've extended the tunnel by 600 metres. It's now south of the Gravesend Road, whereas it was near Lower Higham Road. They've widened the approach road. It's now 2 lanes in each direction. It was 2 lanes, it's now 3 lanes, but without a hard shoulder. They've widened the A2 to 12 lanes, all the way down to the M2. They've redesigned the A2 junction for the 3rd time to improve access to and from the A2 M2. Now please note, access to the A2 eastbound from Gravesend East is actually covered in question 4. So these changes, you've got to give them an answer. Do you support the changes? Let's summarise that. Do you support this part of the route from Chalk up through Southern Valley Golf Course, under Thong Lane and out onto the A2? And are you happy with their plan to widen the A2 to 12 lanes? That is the question. Do you agree, you're neutral, or you disagree? Then they give you a box, and this box is to explain your reasons. So, the tunnel's been extended by 600 metres. There's no doubt that's an improvement to what it was. Think about it, is it enough? Would you like to see it extended a bit more? The golf course is going to have to go. How do you feel about that? As Aaron said, they plan a green bridge where Thong Lane crosses over the main link road. It's basically a flyover with a grass verge either side. Is that a proper green bridge? Or should they make it wider with some green cut and cover either side? We mentioned the A2M2 is going to be widened all the way down to the M2. This will mean the loss of the Central Green Reservation and encroachment on the countryside either side. How do you feel about that? They're going to have to demolish the Brewers Road Bridge and Thong Lane Bridge as well to accommodate the widened A2M2. If you've got any improvements or changes you want to make to the design, please let them know. But if you're entirely happy with what they proposed south of the river, by all means, let them know.
Bob, can I just say something there? Presumably, they intend to rebuild Brewers Lane Bridge under Thong.
Yes, Brewers Road again is going to be what they call a green bridge. It's going to have a grass verge either side of it. The next section of their route they look at is the tunnel. Not much you can say about the tunnel. It's going to be 3 lanes wide in each direction without hard shoulder. There are no ventilation towers. It's going to be through ventilation from one end to the other and then from the other end back again. I guess you can think, is it in the right place? They've moved it very slightly. They did look at extending it 600 metres, and then 800 metres and 1200 metres. In the end, they settled on 600 metres. It's an improvement, but is it enough? Think about whether you would like to see them extend it further. And if you do, and that's what you want, then tell them. There is a service access road onto the A226. They've done away with the junction. Some people may be concerned about that. If you are concerned or you want to know more details, then tell them. But if you're happy with the tunnel, you can just let them know. The next section is north of the river, through Thurrock, Essex and Havering. They ask what you think of that section. Well, look, this guide is designed for people on this side of the river, so some of you may not have a strong view on the route north of the river. Others may know it and they may have their own opinions. But whichever way you look at it, the route in Essex leads here. So if you agree with the route in Essex, you agree with the route east of Gravesend.
Bob, sorry.
Yes.
Can I just point out, obviously we're from north of the river, so if anyone here wants any insight into that, we're quite happy to talk to you and share our
Great,
information.
thank you very much.
Helps at all. Thanks.
If you support it, you're supporting a route that leads east of Gravesend. You've got a choice. So the question is, please give us your comments or any other views you have on the proposed route north of the river, including the bridges and batements, viaducts. And there are some viaducts over there. If you've got any comments on the north of the river, put them in the box. But if you don't know or you don't have any comments, you don't have to answer the question. And my opinion is, if you don't have a view, then don't write anything. Right, now they're on the connections and they're at the south of the river. And the big connection here is going to be the connections to the A2 and its impact on the existing road network. As Aaron said, Gravesend East will lose its direct access onto the A2M2 eastbound, and access to the A2 eastbound will be via 6 roundabouts to Brewers Road in Shoreham. You know, I wrote 6 or 7 so many times over the last 2 months, and I counted them yesterday and it's 6. Or 5 if you come from Hever Court Road. And Shoreham will lose its direct access to the A2 westbound at Harpens Lane, so they're going to have to be coming in the opposite direction from Shoreham through the roundabouts to Gravesend East. This 2-way link road between Gravesend East and Halfpence Lane will also carry the traffic exiting from the M2 and traffic that's exiting from the Lower Thames crossing if they want to get to Gravesend East. And it's also interesting that traffic that comes up the A2 from Strood or from the A289 Wainscott bypass, if they want to get to Gravesend East, they've got to use this road as well. So, although it's only 2 lanes, 1 in each direction, it's likely to be quite a busy road, and it's going to be adding to congestion at Gravesend East, Harpens Lane and Brewers Road. So they ask whether you support or oppose the proposed junction between the Lower Thames crossing and the M2A2. Once they ask you that question, they then give you a box and ask you why you gave them the answer that you gave them. If you're not happy with that access to the A2 eastbound from Gravesend East to Brewers Road, then ask them to look again. Don't redesign it for them. Just say, you're not happy, needs to be simpler. We need access, if that's what you want. If you're not happy that access for the A2 westbound from Shoreham comes along that road, then again, ask them to look again. This 2-way link road, as I say, it's linking Brewers Road, Thong Lane, new exits from the motorway and from the Lower Thames crossing and Gravesend East. If you're not happy with it, tell them. And there's a big concern here that this might create a rat run through Thong, because you can avoid 4 of those roundabouts just by driving up and down Thong Lane. So there's a possibility that it could create a rat run through Thong. If you've got a concern about that, or the extra traffic that it's going to create in places like Shoreham, Cobham, places like that, then tell them. They need to know if you've got concerns. But if you're entirely satisfied with their proposals and the impact it's going to have on local roads, then please let them know. Connections north of the crossing, these means the ones at Tilbury on the A13 and the junction with the M25. There's 4 questions on this, 4C, 4D, 4E and 4F, all about connections north of the river. And since this guide is for people south of the river, they're not in the scope of this guide. However, any of you who use that road and you've got views on the link road and its connections with the road network north of the river, this is where you should tell them. You might want to consider what the impact is going to be on their local roads. If it's going to impact ours, you can bet your life it's going to impact theirs, the A13 and all that sort of thing. But if you've got nothing to say, then say nothing. There's nothing to stop you just not answering a question if you're not sure. I confess, I don't walk very far, I don't ride a bike, and I haven't got a horse, so I don't know a great deal about this. But there will inevitably be some disruption to the public rights of way, particularly during the construction time. Footpath NG7 is the one that goes from the bottom of Thong Lane across the Seven Fields towards Shoreham. And there's another one, NG8, that goes from up near the entrance to the golf course, back across the fields down towards Chalk Church. Both of those will need to be diverted across a footbridge over the tunnel approach road. And this is going to be a narrow footbridge, very high above the road. Some people are concerned it might be a suicide bridge, but that's what's going to happen. At least they're going to reconnect it. Other footpaths, NS 167 and 174, that runs between Thong and Clay Lane Woods, and NS 167 and 169 runs between Thong and Michael Gardens. These have got to get across 4 lots of slip roads from the motorway, and they're going to be diverted through an underpass and then over 2 bridges to get past these slip roads. This will no longer be a pleasant walk for people with their dogs. You know, there's a footpath or a cycle track that runs alongside the A2 past the old petrol station site. That again has got to be diverted, and it's going to be diverted through the same underpass over the 2 bridges, almost out to Thong, and then back in. So if you are users of these footpaths, I would advise you strongly to familiarise yourself with the proposals before you answer that question yourself. Environmental impacts, there is volumes on the environmental side. Most of it telling them the sort of things they're going to be considering, not what they're going to be doing, but what they're going to be considering. All I would say is I do admit, as Aaron's shown you, that there's going to be adverse impacts in terms of noise, in terms of air quality and the environment in this area. And they will seek to minimise the adverse impacts and to mitigate the damage to the environment, planting out, putting up barriers, sort of thing. And the good thing is that on balance they believe that the adverse impacts on the people at East of Gravesend will be more than offset by the benefits to the people at Dartford. So the question is, do you agree or disagree with the proposed measures to reduce the impacts of the project? Again, they give you a box and they ask you for your response, why you gave that response, and anything else you can think of. I'm trying to think of things that you might want to think of. Have you got concerns? What are your concerns about? Is it the noise, the emissions, the air quality, or any other potential pollution aspects? Do you have any suggestions how they can improve or reduce them? Because if you have, you ought to tell them. As Aaron said, the map showed that the land behind Astra Drive will be planted out with trees as environmental mitigation and to reduce noise impacts. And a lot of people think that's a good idea. What guarantees have we got that this will be permanent? Yes, sir.
I went to a council meeting in June. All that area, this area, the golf course, all the way down to Chalk is housing, right up to the new motorway.
You're speaking to the converted.
There'll be no trees.
The trees will go up. How long for? That's the question. So that's why I say, do we have any guarantees that this will be permanent? Do you consider that the Green Bridge they proposed at Thom Lane, is that adequate for wildlife and to prevent severance between natural habitats and to mitigate against noise? Question for you. How does Highways England propose to mitigate against the impact of a 12-lane highway that goes through ancient woodland and a Kent area of natural beauty, of outstanding natural beauty? Question for you. Are you happy with the state of the A2 in terms of litter collection and all the slip roads? Because it's going to be the same people looking after it. How are they going to look after it when the roads will not have a hard shoulder? Are there any other assurances or guarantees or mitigation mitigation measures you think that are needed? Because if you can think of them, you need to tell them. The development boundary, south of the river, Highways England plan to demolish just 4 properties. How many is it in Essex?
We're lost track because they're sending out more letters right now. Residents are receiving letters telling them they're now within the boundary. So we.
How many was it so far?
Yeah, it's about 83, I think.
83. We've got 4. And I believe that they're at Marling Cross on the other side of Hendhurst Road. And they're going to take 2.32 kilometres of land during the construction period and 2.55 kilometres of land permanently. To give you an idea, that's around 575 acres during the construction and 630 acres afterwards. It will stretch all the way from Chalk south to the A2 at Singlewell and eastwards all the way down the Strood. And the question is, do you support or oppose the proposed land area that they need to build the Lower Thames crossing? And again, they're going to give you a box, and that's for you to give the reasons why you answered it, how you answered. And basically, you've got to think, is the land you required, is it reasonable? If not, think of a reason. When questioned at the information events, Highways England could not confirm that the land put aside for environmental mitigation, such as tree planting, would remain within their control or ownership, which is what you were saying. So you might think about that. Should that land go back to the owner? Should it go back to Gresham Borough Council? Should it go to someone like the Woodland Trust or somebody like that? Yes.
Interestingly, when I spoke to one of the people at the consultation, they said that it would be main property of Highways England, but I'd say take that with what you will. I don't know how true it is, but I get the impression it might be.
I've heard lots of conflicting answers, so I think it's still up in the air, to be perfectly honest with you. Right. Please let us know the reasons for your response to question 6A and any other views you've got on the environmental aspects. Just some things you might want to think of. Have you got any concern? I've been through this. Right, let's go through that one. A proposed rest and service area and a maintenance depot. The proposal provides for a rest and service area and a maintenance depot just north of the river near Tilbury Junction. And questions 8A and 8B and 8C refer to this. Some of you might be happy that this is across the river and not south of the river. No doubt some of our friends on the other side would like to see it in Kent. On the other hand, you might not wish this on anybody. I just warn you, if you're happy with it going to Tilbury, then support it and just hope that they're not saying urgent Highways England to put it in Kent. You might think that there is no need for a rest and service area anywhere along the route. That might be your answer. But you can be neutral, or you can choose not to answer this if you haven't got a view.
Bob, can I just jump in there?
Okay.
They've told us that it's a guideline that they have to have one every 28 miles, and they'll be measuring it from Medway Services to South Links. So if you judge it on 28 miles, that's where they're working their locations out from. we've been told it's probably more than likely not many other areas they could put it along the road. Just if that helps at all.
Done. I don't know whether we're going to have a view on it, to be honest with you. Traffic. The Lower Thames crossing